dimensions that worked as visual devices.
It's nostalgic, it's about the history of the sites.
Let's kind of tell a greater story. The dimensions of the screen were easily one of the more attractive parts of the job. It's such an interesting format. It meant that we really had to think about how we'd go about all different parts of the process, try enhancing storytelling to encompass the whole screen, or using positive and negative space to draw people around the screen space, sometimes having information that's covering the whole width, sometimes doing the opposite so people can kind of look around. Also knowing the size that the screen will be in the actual physical space. It's quite a large screen, so that again, I can imagine if you're standing near it, people are going to be looking up, and it might be a bit overwhelming at some times to see this whole screen kind of covered in colour or whatever content, and other times kind of looking over there and almost forgetting that the screen is kind of so wide. That was easily one of the most attractive parts of the brief. The way that I like to brief illustrators when we're doing concept art is to draw the images irrespective of animation process, and just draw it however they sees fit for the brief. And then part of the fun is really deconstructing that and working out ways to animate it.
Definitely the main word is nostalgic, because obviously it's about the history of the site. So yeah, we're definitely shooting for that sort of feel, maybe like a little bit sort of like melancholy, a little bit mysterious as well. I generally work entirely digitally, so yeah, I do a lot of my sketching in Photoshop, and so basically, yeah, the process will start with collecting reference and getting ideas together, and then starting to doodle. A lot of it was very historical, so every now and then it'll be back to Google image search and just finding stuff that's relevant to whatever I'm working on at that stage.
Using spot colour throughout the film was kind of a developing process. We always knew we'd have a textural, contrasty, painterly look, and initially I think my thoughts were to keep things not necessarily black and white, but within just tones. But as we're going on, particularly as we're working on the sequence with the burning of the green mill and the fire there, we introduced some secondary colour highlights there, and it really worked. And then we were like, oh wow, now we need to find ways to work this within the other scenes. And that kind of worked in our favour, because then we're like, rather than just introducing colour here and there, we tried to find within each scene a way to something that we could highlight in each scene, or maybe something that's not so obvious, in a way again to kind of draw your eye around the large sort of canvas space. I quite like the whole circus and princess court theme personally. I think that was probably the first image that I thought of in terms of all the different scenes that we captured. So we kind of travel along the line of people in the queue waiting to go into the big top tent, and then wrap around the tent into the splash ride at Princess Court. And so those two different scenes. So the line of people, I thought it was a really nice opportunity to have a really kind of elongated perspective, and kind of exaggerating that line of people, and then also wrapping around past the tent and revealing the splash ride. I thought, I mean, we pretty much ended up matching one of the historical photos of how the splash ride looks, but also in that format we were able to really kind of extend that perspective, and also kind of fake and squish things to kind of use the screen space to its potential.
My focus is very much on character stuff, so this was actually a huge challenge for me, and definitely elements of like storytelling are things that I'm not that familiar with, so I've definitely taken that away from it, that the beauty of simple compositions. It
was interesting because, well, the technical limitations of the screen we didn't really know until we could actually get there and test it, so we kind of just initially guessed our way there. We kind of, also we thought that a painterly sort of textural feel would suit the emotion of the piece, and then we were partially hoping that would translate to the LED screen. But once we got in there, I think it was partially luck. A lot of the textures and kind of subtleties that we had put in that I thought might get lost actually translated quite well. Guesswork combined with some good early decisions, I'd say.